In the silent void between stars, a single space station floated like a jewel of peace. It was called Harmony's Rest, a place where the galaxy's oldest empires met to speak instead of fight. For centuries, no blood had ever been spilled here. Until today. Until one human walk turned that peace into fear. The station was the size of a small moon, glowing with silver light. From orbit it looked calm. But inside, tension filled every corridor. Hundreds of alien races moved through its long metal halls, shapes, colors, and voices beyond human imagination. Some looked like walking crystals that shimmered in the light. Others floated like clouds of blue gas, whispering in soft, windy tones. Many had claws, wings, scales, or eyes that glowed. But all of them had one thing in common. They stopped and stared when a human passed by. Captain Sarah Chin walked with steady steps down the wide corridor. She was not very tall, not covered in armor, and not glowing with power. She wore a simple black uniform, marked only with the silver emblem of Earth's fleet. Her hair was tied back, her face calm, her eyes focused. She knew they were staring. She could feel it, the weight of 1,000 alien eyes. But she kept walking, silent and confident. Let them look, she thought. Let them wonder. To the aliens, humans were new, a young race that had only recently left their home world. While most species had explored the stars for thousands of years, Earth had only done it for 100. To them, humans were still children among gods. But those who had heard rumors, whispers from the war on Titan Station, the incident at Vega Prime, knew there was something dangerous behind those calm brown eyes. At the end of the hall, a man waited. Ambassador Miguel Torres, Earth's senior diplomat, stood with his hands behind his back. His face was kind but serious, the lines of experience showing near his eyes. He had spent decades speaking with alien leaders, learning their ways, their tempers, and their pride. When Sarah reached him, he gave a small nod. "Are you ready for this?" he asked quietly. "As ready as I can be," she replied. "What should I expect?" Torres sighed. "The same thing I always expect from the Zafrans: pride, arrogance, and the belief that they own the stars." Sarah tilted her head slightly. "They're the ones we're negotiating with?" "Yes," Torres said. "Their commander, Vexthra, will be leading the council today. He believes the Zafrans are the strongest race in the galaxy. Every war they fought, they won. Every deal they made, they controlled." He looked at her seriously. "Do not let him see fear, Sarah. He respects only strength, and despises equality." Sarah gave a small, calm smile. "Then he'll have a problem." They reached the grand chamber of Harmony's Rest, the heart of the Galactic Council. The doors opened with a soft hiss, revealing a room large enough to hold a city. The ceiling rose high above them, lost in a sea of lights. A long circular table stood in the center, surrounded by seats of every size and shape, designed for creatures with wings, tails, or no form at all. The air hummed with quiet energy as the council members took their places. Some watched the humans with polite curiosity. Others whispered behind thin, glimmering lips. A few simply stared in silence, their eyes filled with something colder, suspicion. And then she saw him. Commander Vexthra. He sat across the table, massive even while seated. His skin was deep blue, covered in dark stripes that shimmered under the light. 4 muscular arms rested easily at his sides, each hand sharp with claws. His yellow eyes glowed like a predator watching prey. When his gaze fell on Sarah, she felt the temperature in the room drop. He smiled, slow and cruel, showing sharp teeth that looked made for tearing metal. "So this is the human they sent," he said, his voice deep and echoing. The translator on Sarah's collar repeated the words in soft English. "You look very small, for a warrior race." The room went silent. Dozens of alien eyes turned toward Sarah, waiting for her to react. Would she bow? Apologize? Step back? But Sarah didn't move. Her voice was calm, her face unreadable. "I didn't come to fight," she said. "I came to talk." Vexthra laughed, a low rumbling sound that made even the walls vibrate. "Then let us see," he said, leaning forward. "Let us see how soft Earth truly is." For a long second nobody spoke. Only the soft hum of the station filled the air. The Galactic Council had begun, and somewhere deep in the silent stars, something old and powerful was watching. None of them knew it yet. But peace had just taken its last breath. The great chamber of Harmony's Rest had never been this quiet. Hundreds of alien eyes watched one human woman and one Zephyrian warlord face each other across the council table. No weapons. No armies. Just words. But sometimes words cut deeper than blades. Scene begins. Captain Sarah Chin kept her hands folded on the smooth silver table. Her eyes stayed locked on Commander Vexthera, the massive blue-skinned alien whose 4 arms flexed like coiled snakes. Around them, the council waited in uneasy silence. Translator drones hovered in the air, softly repeating voices in dozens of languages. Ambassador Torres stood at Sarah's side, calm but alert. He had seen many negotiations fall apart, but this one felt different. The air itself seemed heavy, as if the walls knew violence could break out at any second. Torres speaks. Members of the council, he began carefully, the human delegation is honored to be here. We come not to take but to trade. We wish to mine in the neutral asteroid fields between our space and Zephyrian territory. We offer fair division, equal effort, equal reward. The drones repeated his words in musical tones. Whispers filled the room. Some alien representatives nodded. Others frowned, watching Vexthera for his reaction. Vexthera's voice cut through the room. You speak of fairness, human? His voice was deep, vibrating through the floor. You are infants in this galaxy. You crawl where others have conquered. And yet you demand equality? He leaned forward, his 4 hands spreading wide. The Zephyrian Empire will allow your ships to work there, but you will give us 70% of everything you mine. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Even the crystal beings stopped their soft chime voices. Torres's brow furrowed. That is not a partnership, he said quietly. That is slavery. Vexthera smiled, showing rows of silver-tipped teeth. Call it what you wish. We call it mercy. Sarah finally spoke. Her voice was calm, even gentle. 70% is unfair. Our people will be the ones working, digging, and transporting. We believe a fair split would be equal shares. Vexthera's eyes narrowed. Fair? He repeated the word as if it tasted bad. Do you know how many worlds have begged us for less? You humans come from a single green rock and think you can speak to me as an equal? The other delegates shifted uncomfortably. A few tried to change the subject. But Vexthera wasn't finished. He stood up. The movement was slow and deliberate, meant to remind everyone how large he was. Muscles rippled under his blue skin. His upper arms rested on the table while the lower pair clenched at his sides. Every eye in the room followed him. You will accept our terms, he growled, or your tiny ships will never leave your system again. Sarah stayed seated. Her voice remained calm. We don't respond well to threats, she said. Maybe there are other races here who prefer peace to conquest. The words hit the room like a spark in dry grass. Several aliens glanced at each other. Some even nodded slightly, but none spoke. Vexthera's face darkened to a deeper blue. You dare suggest that the mighty Zephyrians are not reasonable? He slammed one clawed hand on the table. The sound echoed like thunder. You think some weak species would make better allies than us? Sarah looked up at him, unflinching. I think any race that believes in cooperation is better than one that believes in fear. Silence. Even the translation drones hesitated. All across the chamber, alien hearts beat faster. They could sense what was coming. Vexthera's next words came out like a growl. You insult me, in front of the council. He took one slow step closer. You come here from your little planet and think you can challenge an empire that has ruled the stars for 2,000 years? He leaned over her. His breath was hot, heavy with pride and rage. Your species is nothing, he whispered. You survived because stronger ones ignored you. Do not mistake mercy for weakness. Sarah met his eyes. Her tone didn't change. We survived, she said, because our world never gave us mercy. We learned to fight for everything we have. A sharp intake of breath passed through the council. Every being in that room, crystal, gas, flesh, and machine, felt the tension snap tight like a wire ready to break. Vexthera's claws dug into the metal table. The lights above flickered. The station's security drones drifted closer, scanning both of them. Ambassador Torres took a slow breath. Commander, he said softly, let us all remember this is neutral ground. Vexthera roared. Silence, old man. He pointed one massive claw at Sarah. This child dares to speak of fighting to me? To me? His yellow eyes burned brighter, his body trembling with rage. The other council members froze. No one wanted to interfere. No one wanted to become the next target. Sarah still didn't move. Her voice came out in a whisper that only the translator made loud. Then perhaps you should sit down before you embarrass your empire. The silence that followed was terrifying. Even the hum of the station seemed to stop. Vexthera's chest heaved. For a second, it looked like he would attack her right there, on the sacred floor of Harmony's Rest. But he didn't. He smiled instead. A thin, cruel smile that promised something worse than death. Very well, he said softly. Let the galaxy witness what happens when a child strikes the hand that feeds it. He turned toward his guards, his muscles still shaking with fury. Prepare the records. This insult will not be forgotten. The council sat frozen. Torres closed his eyes briefly. He knew what was coming. The warlord would not rest until he proved his strength, even here, even now. Sarah watched Vexthra walk back to his seat. Her heartbeat stayed calm, her voice steady. But inside, she felt something cold settle behind her ribs, the knowledge that this meeting would not end in peace. Narration, ending hook. Around the council table, whispers began again, quiet, nervous, fearful. The new race from Earth had just challenged the oldest predator in the stars. And somewhere deep inside Harmony's rest, security alarms were preparing for what came next. You think humans are soft? Vexthra muttered to his guards. Tomorrow she will learn what strength truly means. For 2 hours, the council chamber of Harmony's rest had been filled with arguments and threats. Every word between the human and the Zephyrian commander carried the weight of pride and fear. But in the end, peace never dies with a shout. It dies with silence. And one sound that echoes forever. Scene begins. The long table was covered with glowing data panels and negotiation scrolls. Ambassador Torres tried to keep the discussion civil, but every sentence from the humans only made Vexthra's fury grow. The Zephyrian warlord sat forward now, both upper arms folded across his chest while the lower two tapped impatiently on the table. His yellow eyes burned with something darker than anger, humiliation. He had expected fear. He had expected begging. But the humans, they only gave him calm resistance. Vexthra's voice cut through the room like a blade. You speak of fairness, yet you come here to steal from the strong. He turned toward the other delegates. Do you hear them? These humans think they are equals. The other races looked down silent. No one wanted his wrath. Vexthra laughed bitterly. I have crushed empires older than your entire species. You should be grateful I even let you stand before me. Sarah sat still, hands resting lightly on the table. She looked small next to him, almost fragile. But her eyes never moved from his. They were steady, focused, and for some reason that made him angrier. He rose to his full height, towering above her. The air vibrated with the movement. His deep blue skin glowed under the chamber lights, his muscles shifting like steel cables. Four hands opened wide. Tell me, human, he said, voice low. Do you think you are my equal? Sarah answered quietly, I think we are both trying to survive. Survive? He spat. You survive because we allow it. He leaned closer, his face inches from hers. You are nothing but soft creatures, weak, emotional, fragile. You build your ships from borrowed technology. You live in borrowed time. The room fell silent. Even the translator drone seemed afraid to speak. Sarah's heartbeat slowed. Her training took over. She kept her breathing steady, her hands still. Her voice was calm, barely above a whisper. We build our ships with our own hands, she said. And we don't borrow time. We fight for it. Vexthra's laugh was sharp and cruel. Fight? Against what? He leaned even closer. Against hunger? Against your own dying world? His voice dropped to a growl. You are not warriors. You are frightened animals pretending to be brave. The insult hit the air like poison. Even Torres flinched. The other council members looked away, they couldn't watch what was coming. Vexthra's lower right hand moved, quick like lightning. He grabbed the edge of the table and slammed it, sending cracks through the surface. Then he turned that same hand toward Sarah, claws out, the motion half a threat, half a test. A warning. A challenge. Sarah didn't move. Not 1 inch. For a heartbeat, the universe seemed to stop. The station's hum faded. The lights held still. Even time waited to see what she would do. And then, quietly, almost gently, she stood. Her movement was slow, precise, controlled. She met his yellow eyes. There was no fear in them. Only something calm and cold. She spoke softly. You talk too much. And then, before anyone could react, her right hand moved. One sharp, clean motion. A single sound filled the hall, a slap. It wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. But it cut through the chamber like a blade of thunder in a storm. The sound echoed off the walls, bouncing between glass and metal, until even the silence was afraid to return. Vexthra froze. His massive head turned slightly from the force, not because of pain but because he couldn't believe it had happened. For the first time in his long, violent life, someone had touched him. A human. A soft, fragile human. The council didn't breathe. The gas creatures shimmered in shock. The crystal beings dimmed their lights. Even the translator drone stopped moving. Sarah's hand fell back to her side. Her expression didn't change. She looked up at him with the same calm, steady gaze. "Now," she said quietly, "we are even." Vexthera blinked once, then twice, and then his pupils contracted sharply. A faint whine came from somewhere deep inside his body. His cybernetic implants, the ones fused to his nervous system, began to spark. Tiny arcs of blue light crawled across his neck. He tried to speak, but the words broke apart. "What did you?" He stumbled back a step, eyes wide. The glow spread through his veins, like electricity racing under his skin. Sarah didn't move. Torres whispered, almost too quietly to hear, "Oh no." 5 seconds. That was all it took. 5 seconds of stillness. 5 seconds of silence. Then the Zephyrian commander's body went rigid. His forearms twitched once, twice, and then he fell. The sound of his body hitting the floor was soft, but it carried across the chamber like a scream. Sarah looked down at him for a long moment. Her face remained calm, but her eyes, just for a second, showed something else. Sadness. Maybe even regret. She turned toward the council and spoke softly. "He shouldn't have touched me." Then she looked at Torres. "Let's go." The council erupted in chaos. Guards shouted, delegates screamed, alarms began to wail through the massive chamber. Every screen lit up with alerts, Zephyrian commander down. But Sarah and Torres walked through the chaos as if it were quiet. Behind them, Vexthera's body lay still. The yellow light in his eyes flickered once, and died. Narration, ending hook. No one in the galaxy understood what had happened. Not the scientists, not the generals, not even the council itself. But in that single moment, that one human slap, the balance of the galaxy changed forever. Because 5 seconds later, every world in the stars learned what it meant to fear humanity. No one spoke. No one moved. In the heart of the Galactic Council chamber, silence reigned like a god. The Zephyrian warlord, Vexthera the Unbroken, lay still on the silver floor. And standing over him was a human. The echoes of that single sound, the slap, still seemed to hang in the air. It was impossible, unthinkable, unreal. Humans were not supposed to have this kind of power. They were newcomers. They were supposed to fear the galaxy, not make the galaxy afraid. And yet, in 5 short seconds, everything had changed. Second 1. The moment Vexthera fell, every security drone in the chamber activated. Red targeting lasers flashed across the room. Dozens of mechanical voices shouted in alien tongues, demanding the human to surrender. Captain Sarah Chin didn't move. Her hands stayed at her sides, her breathing slow. Her heart beat once, steady, as if she already knew what was coming. Ambassador Torres stood frozen beside her, eyes wide in disbelief. He had seen many things across the stars: betrayal, battle, cruelty. But never this. Second 2. Energy shields rose around the chamber. Zephyrian guards charged in, their armor black and spiked, plasma rifles humming with lethal light. They surrounded the human and her ambassador in a circle of glowing red barrels. One of the guards roared, "What have you done, human?" His translator made the words sound like thunder. Sarah didn't answer. She simply looked down at the fallen commander. Her calmness was more frightening than any weapon. Second 3. The crystal beings began to hum nervously. The gas creatures shifted shape, retreating to the edges of the room. The mechanical delegates froze mid-motion, scanning the body on the floor. Vexthera's chest twitched once. His cybernetic implants glowed blue. Then sparks crawled across his neck, and his skin began to darken. The nearest Zephyrian guard fell to his knees beside him. "Commander," he shouted, pressing a clawed hand to Vexthera's chest. There was no heartbeat. Only the faint hiss of dying circuits. Something, or someone, had shut him down. Second 4. The floor trembled. An emergency alarm blared through the walls. A cold metallic voice speaking in every known language. Bioneural collapse detected. Command entity terminated. Lockdown engaged. Across the station, blast doors sealed. Power conduits shifted to defensive mode. Harmony's Rest, the most peaceful place in the galaxy, had just gone to war protocol. Torres whispered, "Sarah, what did you do?" Sarah's voice was quiet. "Nothing I can undo." Second 5. The blue light in Vexthera's veins flickered once more, and then vanished completely. The mighty warlord of the Zephyrian Empire was gone. One slap. 5 seconds. And an empire lost its symbol of fear. The aftermath. Guards shouted, weapons raised, confusion everywhere. The council members panicked, their languages mixing into chaos. Some screamed to detain the human. Others whispered that she should be protected. No one knew what had happened. And then, slowly, one of the council members, a crystalline being named Tyrellin, spoke in a voice like ringing glass. She didn't kill him, Tyrellin said softly. She touched him. That was all. The room quieted again. Hundreds of eyes turned toward Sarah. Her expression didn't change. Ambassador Torres took a cautious step forward. Captain, he said, voice low, tell them what happened. Sarah hesitated. Then she spoke. It was a reflex system, she said. An automatic defense implant. Humans use them in deep space missions to survive hostile contact. One of the alien diplomats hissed, a weapon hidden inside your body? Sarah nodded slightly. It's not a weapon. It's protection. It activates only when we're attacked. The Zephyrian guards growled. You lie. The commander did not attack you. Sarah turned her head slowly toward them. Her eyes were cold and sharp. He raised his claws. That was enough. A chill moved through the crowd. Even those who hated humans could feel it, the unspoken truth. The slap had not been anger. It had been judgment. Calculated. Controlled. Like the motion of a machine built for survival. Ambassador Torres raised his hands. Enough, he shouted. This was an accident, a tragic accident. The system reacted faster than thought. The captain bears no malice. But the damage was done. The whispers had already begun to spread. Whispers of fear. From the back rows of the chamber, alien envoys began speaking into their wrist communicators. Messages flew across the station. Human soldier kills Zephyrian leader with a single touch. Earth species uses biological weapons. Do not provoke the humans. Fear travels faster than light. By the time Sarah and Torres were escorted from the chamber, the entire station knew the story. And by the end of the hour, so did the galaxy. In the dark corridors of Harmony's Rest, as alarms faded and lockdowns lifted, Sarah and Torres walked in silence. Guards followed at a distance, unsure whether to protect them or imprison them. Torres finally spoke, voice low and heavy. Do you realize what this means? Sarah's eyes stayed forward. They'll fear us. He nodded. Yes. Every species that ever looked down on Earth will rethink that choice. You've just started something we can't stop. Sarah stopped walking. For a moment, she looked out a window, the stars reflected in her eyes like cold fire. I didn't want to start anything, she said quietly. But sometimes peace needs a reminder of what we can do. Back in the chamber. Vextra's body was gone now, taken by medics. But the floor still bore the mark of where he fell, a dark outline against the shining metal. The other delegates avoided looking at it. Tyrellin, the crystal being, whispered to another council member. Do you think she meant to do it? No, the other replied softly. That's what makes it worse. Narration, ending hook. In 5 seconds, humanity went from newcomers to a nightmare. From explorers to legends. From prey to predator. And as Harmony's Rest drifted in the dark between stars, one message spread across every world. Do not anger the humans. They kill with a touch. 5 hours after the death of Commander Vextra, Harmony's Rest was no longer a station of peace. It was a storm of fear. Whispers crawled through its silver corridors like shadows with voices. And at the heart of it all, one name echoed across every species, every tongue. Human. Every hall, every market, every glowing promenade of the station was filled with noise. Aliens of every shape and kind gathered in small groups, arguing, trembling, speculating. The crystal beings sang low warning tones. The winged Varnies perched high above, refusing to touch the same floors as humans. The gas creatures sealed their chambers, muttering through translators. They kill with a touch. They kill without weapons. In the diplomatic wing, news feeds played the same footage again and again. Commander Vextra's body, the human captain standing over him, and the words no one could unhear. Let's see how soft Earth truly is. Then silence, then death, and then fear. Inside the council chamber. The chamber was darker now. The great lights that once shone like stars were dimmed to blue. Security drones lined the walls. Every seat was filled, yet no one spoke above a whisper. Ambassador Torres stood in the center with Captain Sarah Chen beside him, surrounded by the galaxy's most powerful leaders. In front of them, the High Speaker of the Council, a tall being made of liquid silver, shifted form slowly as it spoke. Human Captain, it said in a calm, echoing voice. Do you deny that your action caused the death of Commander Vextra? Sarah's answer was steady. No. The chamber stirred with voices, some shocked, some impressed, some afraid. Torres stepped forward quickly. It was an automatic defense reaction, he said. A neural implant triggered by threat detection. She did not mean to harm the commander. A hiss came from the Zephyrian delegation. Their new representative, General Carix, Vexter's brother, stood up, eyes burning gold. Meaning is irrelevant, he growled. Result is everything. My brother is dead. And a child race did it, a species barely out of its cradle. He pointed one clawed hand toward Sarah. Earth must answer for this. Blood for blood. The room erupted in arguments. Some shouted for punishment. Some demanded investigation. A few whispered that Earth should be isolated, cut off from galactic trade and travel. But others, quieter voices, spoke in fear, not anger. A tall insectoid delegate clicked softly. If that human defense system can kill a Zephyrian commander instantly, what else can they do? Another whispered. Perhaps their technology is more advanced than they admit. Perhaps they have weapons even we cannot detect. The High Speaker raised a metallic hand. Enough, it said, and silence fell. The Council will deliberate. But before we decide the fate of Earth, we must understand why this occurred. It turned its shifting face toward Sarah. Human Captain. Tell us what you felt when the commander struck you. Sarah hesitated. Then softly she said, I didn't feel fear. Just instinct. There was something in her tone, something cold and ancient, that made even the bravest species fall silent. Instinct. That word carried weight. Because instinct meant survival. And survival meant violence. The kind that comes from a world where predators never stopped hunting. Ambassador Torres spoke again, trying to control the tone. Humans evolved on a death world, he said. A place where every day is a test between life and extinction. We learn to adapt. Quickly. Sometimes brutally. The captain's implant is not aggression. It is the same thing that keeps our kind alive. Across the table, General Carix slammed his claws against the surface. Enough excuses, he roared. You speak as though your weakness is a virtue. The truth is simple. Humans are dangerous, unstable, unpredictable. Torres looked at him steadily. Perhaps, he said. But only when threatened. The vote. The High Speaker rose. The Council must decide whether humanity remains among us, or stands apart. Panels lit up across the room. Dozens of glowing lights blinked. Blue for peace, red for sanction. One by one the colors began to change. Sarah stood still, eyes scanning the room. She saw a species she had never met, judging her entire world by one act. She saw fear stronger than logic. And she knew deep down that this moment would shape Earth's place in the galaxy forever. When the last light flickered, the chamber fell silent again. The High Speaker's voice echoed softly. By majority vote, humanity will remain under observation. Restricted travel. Monitored presence. And any further aggression will be seen as a declaration of war. Sarah's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Torres gave a slow nod. We accept. But Carix's voice cut through the air like a blade. I do not. He stood, towering above the table. The Zephyrian Empire does not bow to council votes. We will have justice, in our own way. He turned sharply and left the chamber, his guards following like shadows. No one tried to stop him. No one dared. Later, observation deck. Hours later, Sarah stood alone by the wide observation window. Stars stretched across the black like silent witnesses. Below her, Harmony's Rest turned slowly, lights flickering like fading hope. She could hear distant murmurs of fear through the glass. Entire worlds talking about Earth now. Her name. Her face. A human who killed with a touch. Ambassador Torres joined her quietly. You did well, he said. They didn't expel us. Sarah didn't answer at first. Then she said softly, That's not peace, Miguel. That's fear wearing a mask. He nodded. Maybe fear is what they understand. She turned to him, her expression unreadable. Then they'll never understand us. Meanwhile, in the shadows. Far across the station in a private council chamber, a small group of alien leaders met in secret. Their holograms shimmered, tall, insectoid, crystalline, serpentine, mechanical. Their voices were low but sharp. The human killed a Zephyrian warlord, one said. With no weapon. Another replied, If they can do that with instinct, imagine what they could do if prepared. Pause. Then a whisper that chilled even their cold hearts. Perhaps, it is time to ally with them. Before someone else does. Narration closing scene. Across the galaxy, messages spread faster than light. Worlds trembled. Empires recalculated their strategies. And in the silent heart of Harmony's Rest, humanity, small, fragile, new, had just become the most unpredictable power in the stars. Because everyone had seen it. One slap. 5 seconds. And an empire's pride, dead on the floor. They called it the human incident. But soon the galaxy would learn a different name. The beginning of something much larger. The beginning of the human ascendancy. In the cold silence between stars, fear travels faster than light. It took only 5 seconds for a human to kill a warlord, and only 5 days for the galaxy to realize what that meant. 1 week later, outer orbit of Harmony's Rest. The human ship HFY Resolute floated quietly near the station. Its silver hull reflected the light of a nearby star, calm and still, but every weapon system on board was armed. Inside, Captain Sarah Chin stood before the large viewing window, staring into the endless dark. She hadn't slept much since the council meeting. Every day brought new reports, protests, threats, rumors. Some alien species called for war. Others begged to sign defense treaties with Earth. And in the shadows between worlds, someone was hunting her. Ambassador Torres entered the command deck, his face pale but composed. "They've recalled us," he said. "Earth Command wants us back immediately." Sarah didn't move. "Because of the Xiperians?" He nodded slowly. "Their fleets are moving. Quietly. No official declaration yet, but scouts have vanished near our borders." Sarah exhaled softly. "So it begins." Seen, the galactic divide. Across the galaxy, the reaction to Vextra's death spread like wildfire. The proud Xiperian Empire demanded vengeance. Their broadcasts showed Vextra's flag wrapped in fire, his brother Carrick's vowing to burn the human cradle to dust. But not everyone agreed. The Ketheri, an old insectoid race, issued a different message. Perhaps the humans are what this galaxy needs. A race unafraid of tyrants. The Tovari, crystalline beings who valued trade over war, secretly opened talks with Earth's diplomats. And deep within the mist-covered world of Ethar Prime, the gas creatures whispered to one another. They are the storm that remembers its birth. For the first time in 10,000 years, the balance of power was shifting. Not through weapons, but through fear, the kind that no treaty could erase. Seen Human Command Center, Earth Orbit. Far from Harmony's Rest, in Earth's orbiting command ring, generals and scientists filled the conference chamber. Holograms of alien leaders flickered across the air. Everyone was talking, loudly, urgently. "We can't fight the Xiperians," one admiral said. "They have 200 worlds, 10,000 ships. But they've never fought us," another replied quietly. "And they don't understand what that means." On the screen, Ambassador Torres appeared, still aboard the Resolute. He said, "They think we're monsters now. We can use that. Not by attacking, but by showing restraint. Control. That will scare them even more." Sarah stood beside him, her voice calm but sharp. "They think humans kill too easily. Let them keep thinking that. Let them believe we only move when pushed, because when we do move, the galaxy shakes." The room went silent. Everyone understood. It wasn't arrogance. It was survival, spoken like truth carved from stone. Seen, the Xiperian Empire. General Carrick stood in his war hall, surrounded by soldiers in armor the color of cobalt. The banners of his fallen brother hung behind him, burning faintly in the blue light. A messenger entered. "General, the fleets are ready. Do we strike at once?" Carrick turned, his 4 hands clasping the blade at his side. "No," he said darkly. "Not yet. The humans want us to come to them. We will wait. Watch. Find their weakness." He looked out toward the stars. "They killed a warlord with a reflex. What happens when they decide to do it on purpose?" His voice dropped lower, full of hate. "We will learn their fear, and then we will end it." But even he did not sound convinced. Seen, back on the Resolute. Sarah sat in her quarters, watching the holographic recording of the council meeting. Vextra's words echoed softly in the air. "You look very small for a warrior race." She watched herself reply, calm, almost detached. "I didn't come to fight." She paused the video. Her reflection looked back at her, tired, thoughtful. Earth hadn't planned for this. One defensive strike had changed everything. Now the galaxy saw them not as explorers, but as predators pretending to be peaceful. And maybe she thought that wasn't entirely wrong. Seen, secret transmission. A transmission came in from an unknown source. Encrypted. No traceable origin. Sarah accepted it. A hooded alien appeared in the hologram, voice filtered and distorted. Captain Shin, it said. There are those who believe your people can change the order of the stars. We wish to help. Sarah frowned. Who are you? A friend, the voice said. And an enemy of the Zephyrians. A symbol flickered on screen, a circle of 12 stars crossed by a single red line. Then the transmission cut off. Torres entered just as the hologram vanished. He looked at her. Who was that? Sarah shook her head slowly. I don't know. But I think the galaxy is choosing sides. Scene, Council Emergency Broadcast. Hours later, every screen on Harmony's Rest lit up at once. The high speaker's silver face appeared. Its voice was grim. This message is for all species of the Galactic Council. A Zephyrian fleet has entered neutral space. Their destination is Earth. Chaos erupted across the station. Ships launched. Alarms sounded. And on the Resolute's bridge, Sarah stood straight, her eyes cold and focused. Prepare for jump, she said. We're going home. Scene, Earth orbit final. When the Resolute dropped from hyperspace, Earth hung before them, blue and shining, fragile and proud. Dozens of defense satellites glowed like stars around it. The fleet was ready. Ambassador Torres looked at Sarah. Do you think they'll actually attack? Sarah watched the horizon where the Zephyrian fleet was forming. Her voice was quiet but strong. They think we're soft. They're about to learn the truth. Final narration, cinematic ending. And so it began, the first war that would decide the future of the galaxy. A war not of conquest but of fear and misunderstanding. For the first time in history, the ancient empires looked down at a young world and realized that humanity was not another species to rule. It was a storm they could never contain. Because humans had a secret written in their bones. A truth the galaxy had forgotten long ago. We do not start wars. But we end them. The stars flickered. The fleets moved. And somewhere in the silence between, the legend of Earth was born.